Welcome back to TBI Expert View, our focused discussions on the evolving world of global VAT. If you missed our previous instalment with Lisa Dowling, our Senior Global Director, Indirect Tax, Advisory and Compliance, don't worry, we have uploaded the video for you onto the Taxback International website. Or if you prefer, you can search for TBI Expert View podcast and listen to it on your favourite podcast streaming service. So today on TBI Expert View, we're going to be rejoining Lisa, who will be in discussions with our Senior VAT Compliance Manager, Teodora Vallone. Teodora will be offering her perspective on the impact of the digital evolution in global tax processing. Their conversation will touch on the impact these changes will have on businesses, as well as the potential opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. So for any businesses or finance managers trying to understand the impact of digitalized tax processes, Teodora provides great insights. So over to Teodora and Lisa.
Hello everyone and welcome again to the TBI Expert View. In this session we will discuss in more detail tax digitalisation, talking today with Teodora Vallone. Hi Teodora.
Hi Lisa.
Teodora recently joined TBI as a Senior VAT Compliance Manager with over 2 decades of international VAT and GST experience in VAT compliance, advisory and tax technology. So Teodora, welcome again to the group chat. We'll jump straight into the topic on tax digitalisation to discuss first its principles, I suppose. So what are the objectives and principles of tax digitalisation to set the scene?
Well, we know that digitalization has been a big thing of our times. This has affected businesses as well as individuals' lives, and sometimes making it easier, sometimes making it more complicated. With regards to businesses, they have gained much more benefit from digitalization because processes have been streamlined and simplified, as well as the ability to analyze data and therefore gain a better insight into the operations, for example, and every aspect of the businesses has been simplified. And also the tax process management has been benefiting from digitalization. As far as tax administrations are concerned, they had to adapt to the changes in the way businesses are carried out because of digitalization. So even the revenue models had to adapt and change. And there are different requirements as well in implementation of these changes imposed by the tax authorities. However, the objective is the harmonization of all the taxes to minimize burden on businesses and as well as on administration. So the principles applied by the tax authorities in imposing new digitalized requirements are the effectiveness in data collection, and also they seek to find a balance between their revenue and their revenue interest and the taxpayers' interest.
I suppose I know you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, but we seem to be kind of at the breaking egg stage of a lot of the digitalizations with the tax offices, and so there's a hardship in the setup, but I suppose it will be of great advantage to the tax office and business when digitalization is rolled out.
Yes, but then it's not very simple. There's plenty of good intentions to find the balance, as I said before, between the tax authorities and the interest and the taxpayers' interest. But then the changes internally in a business can have a massive impact. Because there is a requirement for integration between tax authorities and technologies used by the business. But the main point is to improve compliance and raise trust between the taxpayers and the tax authorities, because transparency is the main feature of the digital evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose transparency and compliance, but also giving businesses the ability to comply. So digitalization not to be a barrier also to compliance. They need to look at that too. So are all the good intentions being effectively implemented then, Teodora?
This depends. If you hear from some businesses, then they're more prepared than others. So the transition from a traditional way of reporting tax to a digitalized way is basically breeze. For others, is more complex because they are maybe not prepared for the changes. But there is not, every solution proposed will have a good side for some businesses and a bad side for others. But there is not one size fits all solution. Mm-hmm. But as technology evolves rapidly, new systems should be developed to bear in mind this evolution, and so that businesses are not overburdened down the line with new requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tax offices have to ensure that what they do introduce gives that flexibility, I suppose, for future development without being a burden to business. Yeah. And then I suppose businesses have to consider how they're going to manage digitalization. And we're going to talk to Barbara Barczyk in the next series just on whether outsourcing is the best option to manage all of these changes and digitalizations across the different tax offices. But just digitalization of VAT, could VAT be the main tax for reporting purposes?
Well, yes, because if we look at VAT, basically this is a tax that's applied on transactions. Transactions form the basis of the revenue, and the revenue is ultimately taxed for corporate taxation. Obviously, we can track transactions subject to VAT from imports down to sales into, could be through invoicing or through receipts. So once we have access to, the tax authorities have access to all this information, they can also have a reliable basis to impose taxation, whether it's direct taxation or indirect taxation, taxation, because all the transactions are traceable, and also where there is an imposition of a high frequency of real-time filing. Then that helps tax authorities to detect fraud and evasion a lot earlier. And therefore, this is the big headache at the moment. But the main purpose is eventually is to harmonize the tax systems around the globe by implementing new requirements and and systems, and also giving the tax authorities access, cross-border access to the information. This digitalization is really a good thing if implemented in the right way. So for businesses, for example, real-time invoice reporting eliminates the need for complex in-house processes. And tax authorities, on the other hand, they basically can create through this implementation a reliable basis to determine the taxpayer's tax liability.
Yeah, you wonder though at some points, what is all the data needed for? With the example of SAI in Spain, what is your input data needed for, and what is the tax offices actually using it for, and are they cross-referencing against your suppliers' listings? And so maybe they will get to that eventually, but at the moment it feels like in some countries it's a lot of data that's being reported with heavy real-time requirements causing businesses huge headache, and then you're kind of wondering what is all this for. But maybe we'll get to a point where we'll see the ultimate benefit for business.
Yes, at the moment the administration, the tax authorities' focus is to tax in real time, or to make the process as immediate as possible. So they tend to focus, but the way they implement digitalization is basically different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. For example, some tax administration focus on the implementation of a system based on corporate tax information first and VAT later, or vice versa. And that requires double effort from businesses to adapt. Otherwise, there is a real-time transmission of information, but information that basically is a complete set of information that just require the streamlining of all the information into one reporting. So, for example, I could provide there is the example of Greece and UK. Greece is the latest country that has implemented a platform for real-time reporting, but UK has taken a phased approach. So they have implemented MTD for VAT first, and then they will implement MTD for corporate tax later. So this will require inevitably a double effort from businesses. And as I said, where businesses are prepared, they can meet the obligation, but then also you have to consider the complexity of the business. So there are businesses that have I don't know, many entities, many registrations, different systems because they're acquisitive businesses, and implementing an MTD for VAT that requires an automated end-to-end process that may be very demanding within these businesses, this type of business, because there are many technical challenges.
Yeah.
But Greece, on the other hand, I think is the idea of Greece is much closer to the linear approach that would be ideal for businesses. So they focus on transactions in Greece rather than on processes, tax processes. But they have left VAT outside of the platform. So whilst businesses have to report their revenue in real time, and customers will have to report, registered customers will have to report their expenses, and then this information is matched. Eventually, VAT returns are reported outside, are prepared and submitted outside of the platform, and the platform will only be used, the information on the platform will only be used to match the accounting data to the tax data, VAT data.
Okay, and so then what is the real impact on business then for digitalization?
As I said, there is not much consistency across jurisdictions by looking at the examples that we just talked about. So this may require a different degree of adaptation, and complex businesses may pay a heavier toll than smaller businesses, where they have to employ human capital as well as money, investment for to adapt to new requirements. Mostly businesses might not have the digital tax expertise in-house and may look outside for support. There are many different solutions which may be bespoke or standard, but the best solution is the one that meets the tax authority's requirements, and it doesn't overburden the business. So when a solution is implemented in-house, this should be a piece of technology that is a long-term investment that can be then adapted to future requirements.
Yeah, absolutely, and the flexibility there as well. And there's always the risk of the lack of knowledge when you're working with multiple jurisdictions and just keeping up to date on the changes that are happening. So that's a big challenge. But then what are the benefits and opportunities for VAT compliance, and where can businesses find support if they need it?
Well, there are many companies that are born during the last years, a few years that provide solutions and support to businesses. So the benefits, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, is greater data insight for businesses, the streamlining of processes, and then eventually the optimization in use of headcount and the cost savings, especially in relation to penalties and the risk of errors where or lateness of submission, where basically these are eventually eliminated by using real-time reporting and high frequency of
because we've seen it with MTD for VAT, even the simplest in the beginning, just the lifting and shifting of data to populate the return, just even the automation of that removes risk of error. So even that first simple step by HM Revenue Custom reduced risk significantly, I suppose.
Yes. And then, for a business to implement the best solution is basically they have to consider the type of transactions, their presence across jurisdictions, the number of VAT registrations, whether they are VAT grouped, the number of systems in use, and also the ability to build a consistent tax logic to streamline the information for the purpose of implementing the new requirements. So, it's a complex exercise, and the businesses should be looking at a provider that can support them in every step.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk to Barbara again on the next series about outsourcing and the things that you should consider. But if you could just give us some examples or run through what businesses should consider when they're looking for a service provider in relation to tax digitalization and keeping up to date.
They should consider a compliance reporting solution that can deal with the complexities while maintaining data integrity. That's very important. And also they should consider a solution with built-in error learning that basically betters the process as it goes along. Eventually, the need for human intervention should be eliminated throughout the process. And as I emphasize once again, that the solution should be long-lasting to avoid overburden an overburden along the line to readapt again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the key, and businesses need to look at, what's good or what's needed for their business, and definitely be able to teach the technology, and I suppose it's moving back in the process of, catching the error, not just on submission, but actually finding the error in your ERP system and correcting it at that point to kind of streamline the automation and tax digitalization going forward.
I believe that the best place, as I said, there are many providers of bespoke or standard solutions, depending on the complexity of the business. But then I think the best placed suppliers of such services would be companies that specialize in compliance services, because along the years they've dealt with many different jurisdictions as well as industries and complexities within businesses. So the road to the perfect or ideal digital tax system is still very long, because both tax authorities and businesses are working on digitalization and automating processes. But I believe that once in time, the adoption of these solutions will reshape the landscape of tax, and also there will be new requirements for a new tax expertise that doesn't stop just the traditional VAT advisory. So the role of advisors will change dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. And ever changing, and there's a lot to keep up with and a lot to consider. But it was great, Teodora, to just talk to you today in a bit more detail about tax digitalization. And thanks for the time and for the discussion.
Thank you, Lisa.